Did you ask for anything more than that tonight on such a special night for the club?
No, it's rare to play that well against such a good team, and we feel like we've been building. So it wasn't like the good performance from our end was completely unexpected, and we also acknowledge the challenges they've got. It's also a rare situation when you've got a couple of dominant key forwards against a team that's just been decimated in terms of their key defensive stocks. So we kind of modelled out a whole range of scenarios, and Mills on Hawkins was still one that we left out. Such was the challenge that was in front of them and the esteem in which they hold him. So we're aware of all that stuff, but yeah, it was still a really good performance and still early in the year, but we feel like we're moving the right way.
To see someone like Sam Simpson come in like you did, and then in that first couple of minutes kick the goal, and you see the team coming around him, how special is that, and what's already a special night for the club? Yeah,
it's really special, and it's I think if you're involved in footy for a long period of time, part of the challenge of being sort of optimistic about your career and your future is having to endure the really difficult times. And it's easy when you see, because most people just see the outcome, game day, but they don't see the dreary kind of repetitive work in rehab. And so Sam's obviously been through a long period when he was in that position, but for even bigger periods, it looked like he wasn't going to get back at all. So he's had a history of soft tissue injuries that he's done a power of work on to remedy, but it was the concussion issues that were really worrying. And I'm proud of the way that our club's handled the situation too, because he was given the space that he needed. But we had a lot of faith in the sort of player that he could become, and the investment that the whole sort of club has put in him, I think, will pay off for us. But it's just, I think a few of the players have said it already, he's a great teammate. They love playing with him. He's enthusiastic. Never at any stage, you would forgive anyone who's been through that to kind of mope around the club. He's never done that. Even when he was really struggling, his place on the list looked, if not in jeopardy, almost completely gone. But he just kept bouncing in, some positivity. It's just really nice when you see guys like that come through. So he's got a long way to go, but it was a nice moment. It's worth spending a bit of time talking about.
What was behind the late change tonight?
John Segler came out for personal reasons, so I don't like talking about people's personal issues. Suffice to say that in the end it was good news. So he's had his first baby, and it just wasn't appropriate for him to play tonight. But again, it's sort of up to them to announce their news. But I think it's out there that they've had the baby, and that's the reason.
Was it good for Sam to have sort of a low-key sort of first game, like he comes in as that late change?
I think so. Yeah, sometimes the build-up can be the hardest part. When you're thinking about it the whole week, and the late change makes it a little bit easier just to come in and do your job. But I think it was nice when we heard the news around Segs' baby, and it gave everyone a lift when Sam came into the team as well. So those little things, it's hard to say, but the boys were certainly up and about.
Tell us what you got out of Mark Blitzards in the ruck and his clearance work. We know when the ball hits the ground. And does this give you any, cause for thought that maybe this is the best way to go with Mark as your predominant ruck?
Yeah, we're always thinking about it. He is a unique player. I mean that literally. We'll fight hard to find someone that could play a similar role to him in the future, but I think that's going to be difficult. And there's been a strong argument for a long time that his best position is in the ruck. We're biased towards our own players, but I look around the comp and I wouldn't want anyone before him in that position, given what he gives as a package. But it's just nice to have the flexibility, because we've got those options. I'd be surprised if that's the way we go all the time, but it's nice to know that we can do it. But we've known that for a while. It's not a surprise to us that he played the way he did tonight.
You said you've been building. Is there a particular area you felt like you took a big step forward in tonight?
I think the first 3 weeks we identified some issues that were almost beyond our control a little bit, and we took some, I wouldn't even call them risks, because we knew that, say, Hawkins, for example, was going to take time to build into the year. And then, we lost a lot of defenders all at once, which I think, as we saw with Sydney tonight, it cripples you when you lose a lot of players in one particular part of the ground. But the part that was in our control that we were really disappointed with in the first 3 weeks was our work around the ball. And I think those guys have really lifted the last 3 weeks. And irrespective of the challenges of the Swans, over a fair period of time, they've been pretty good around the midfield. So I wouldn't underrate that performance tonight.
How did you plan in terms of the actual on-field ceremony, etc.? Is there any danger of that being a challenge for players, or was that completely blocked out while the actual ceremony was going on before?
Do you mean the unfurling?
Yes, the unfurling.
Yeah, I don't think the players saw it. It was,
Yeah.
I guess we acknowledged it, but our take on it was that for us and our team tonight, we're really proud of that achievement last year, but we've moved on. We're trying to be in the moment, but we shouldn't allow that to take away from the enjoyment that it brings other people. It's more for them than it is for us, really. And I think, again, our club has done a really good job of acknowledging the fact that the success last year was built off decades and decades of hard work by a lot of people that should be recognised. I've said it a few times, but my understanding is that 25 years ago, roughly, there was a real push to move Geelong away from Geelong. And the administrators that fought hard to keep us here should sit back, or should have sat back, last year after the last game, feeling really proud of what they did. And I think this is more of an opportunity to acknowledge all of those people over that long period of time. Even going back, we had representatives from the 50s premiership teams. It's just, again, Tom Hawkins is now the second highest games played in Geelong's history, is that right? Over 150 years. So it's worth sort of saying to them, acknowledging that with our players. Would anyone be where they are without Tom Hawkins? I wouldn't. And so I think that's what the unfurling's more about. It's not, hey, you guys last year, great job. It's a much bigger group of people than that. But I don't think there was any risk that we were ever going to get distracted talking about that stuff. But
Will you keep a close eye on Tuesday? And I know you've been down this path before with your brother when he was at North Melbourne, but how much are you looking forward to next week?
I didn't expect that question. I haven't really thought about it that much. I don't like talking about it, you're right, but it's worth having a crack. I'm going to have to deal with it at some stage.
Better after a 15-goal win? Or?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and, I think, it's going to sound like nepotism probably, but there are a couple of good coaches around the comp that have come back and helped their teams. It just makes it harder. That's my takeaway from the AFL environment at the moment. Each day just seems to get harder. So we won't be getting carried away, that's for sure. They're playing well.
Was there any injury issue with Cam Guthrie's substitution?
No, just management.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to talk about Mitch Duncan?
Yes.
Three games back?
Yeah. So he was a bit similar to Paddy Dangerfield last year, and that's sort of what's generally the approach we take with those sort of guys. But we could have pushed him back in the early rounds, and that's probably to my point earlier. We knew that we'd get better once we got some of those guys back, but Hawkins was completely different to, say, Duncan, who we held back, and it's good to see him back playing well.
Are you concerned about an MRO issue at all with him?
Well, I'm not. I've looked at it really closely, and it's almost impossible to do anything different than what he did when a player's coming at you at that speed. And I'm not saying Fox deliberately ran past the ball, but he ended up past the ball, and Mitch has got to protect himself somehow, and looks to me like the contact was to the shoulder, and fortunately Robbie's okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Good to know we all agree.
Thanks, Chris.